Good afternoon, EDH enthusiasts. I'm the Planeswalker Project, and welcome to a Commander discussion video. One of the more recent legendary creatures to be released is Voja, Jaws of the Conclave. Voja is a 5/5 legendary wolf for 2, a red, a green, and a white mana. It has Vigilance, Trample, and Ward 3. Whenever Voja attacks, you put X +1/+1 counters onto each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control. You draw a card for each wolf you control. This card has caused a huge stir in the Commander community, and it got me thinking of how the Commander format has shifted in recent times so that a card like this could exist in the context it does with the reputation that it's gained. As a start, it having 3 very relevant abilities makes it a tremendous threat in combat. Both Vigilance and Trample on a 5/5 that will grow larger is tough enough to deal with, especially in colors that can easily drop this early on. It also having Ward 3 is a pain, since it does require an opponent looking to target it with any removal, needing to pay an additional 3 mana to do so. Ward, I think as an ability, is a lot more powerful than either Hexproof or Shroud, as you can still target the card with Ward, you just have to pay an additional cost. In this case, it needs 3 additional mana, which can impact the tempo of the player looking to remove Voja. As for the attack trigger, I really think that this would work better in an Elf Ball deck, since we haven't yet gotten enough Kindred Wolf support to make it being standalone more viable than Elves. Now that's not to say that we don't see some almost symbiotic wolf support among elf creatures that might make it interesting to run alongside. Cards like the Master of the Hunt, Wolfskull Shaman, and Ren's Run Packmaster. So many folks think that Voja is too powerful and that this warrants it being banned in the format. I think that this isn't the way that we should approach a commander like this. I don't think that this is so powerful that it should be banned. Let's take a moment to revisit a commander we've covered on this channel that did in fact get banned. Leovold, Emissary of Trest. This 3-mana elf restricts opponents from drawing more than 1 card per turn. Leovold decks almost always ran Teferi's Puzzle Box, an artifact which triggered at the beginning of each player's draw step, putting their whole hand on the bottom of their library and then them drawing that many cards. So they would draw their card for turn before this ability was placed on the stack, and then after the Puzzle Box's ability resolves, their hand would be placed on the bottom, and then they would draw an equal number of cards. But because of Leovold's restriction, your opponents would not draw any cards after sending their hand away. This would effectively lock them into only using the cards that they have in play at the time. Unfortunately, Leovold is also in colors that excel in card draw and tutor effects, and so setting up this lock early game is easy to do and very consistent. And this created unfun game environments that offered no out to any deck that couldn't outpace Leovold. To really stand a chance against Leovold, you would have to hope to pull a piece of instant speed removal that you could squeak in as soon as you drew it in the draw step before the Teferi's Puzzle Box took it away, and very few cards could manage that reliably. This is an example of a card that needs banning. Let's return to Voja. Voja does run the potential to make a huge board state of huge creatures, almost rivaling Craterhoof Behemoth, and especially in an elf deck, this could be very powerful. You also get card draw based on how many wolves you control, which in some contexts could be relevant. The ward protection is powerful, but this card is not without answers. One of the crucial pillars of Commander deck building is removal and interaction. In recent times, brewers have begun to prioritize more single target removal pieces, such as Swords to Plowshares and Assassin's Trophy. These cards can still target Voja, it just requires some mana to cover that ward tax, but a facet that I've seen many people overlook is board wipes and general wrath effects. Cards like Wrath of God, Cyclonic Rift, and Blasphemous Act all can handle Voja quickly and not needing to pay for the ward tax. I see less decks running these cards these days, and I think that this might be at least in part of the problem. See, Voja costs 5 mana, and even with ramp effects, it's still telegraphed early on that you need to deal with Voja. Competent deck building paired with proper threat assessment would tell you that this card needs an answer at the ready before it hits the battlefield, and that you should have ways to do so. You should make a plan to deal with Voja in the event that it's cast, whether it be tutoring for a board wipe, or getting a counterspell at the ready, or simply taking out the Voja player before they cast it. I think that the response to this card having been simply calling for its ban feels more of a knee-jerk reaction than anything else. We should look at this card and the threat that it poses in games as a challenge to our ability as Commander deck builders and players to adapt, to elevate our game so that we can deal with powerful cards, and to evolve and grow as deck builders and strategists. It's not unstoppable. It doesn't run the possibility of creating some impenetrable board state like Leovold did, and it has answers. We simply have to engage with the cards at our disposal and look through the back catalog of Magic for cards to answer threats like this. I think banning more cards is not the way that we should be approaching the Commander format. Commander is supposed to be the fun, casual, non-sanctioned format where you can play all of your silly favorite cards and make huge epic moves. Voja very much fulfills the idea of having a big Timmy creature that hits the battlefield and makes all the rest of our board gigantic and push for game. Is it broken? No. Is it powerful? Sure. The ban list exists and has context for each of the cards over the years that have been banned, and I honestly can't see many of these newer cards hitting the ban list. If you look at the cards that do exist on the ban list, many of them are older and were designed in a space before Commander existed. The very small handful of cards that have been added since were designed before Wizards really honed in and refined their design space for Commanders, where we would get a few cards here and there that were unbalanced and overpowered. I don't think the game designers back then had any idea that a format would take hold to the effect of Commander, where certain cards scaled with the size of a Commander game. Nowadays, we get dozens, nearly hundreds of new legendary creatures and pushed cards for the format that have all been designed for Commander, but they've been all designed in such a way that they both recognize and respect the space and power level that Commander occupies. Another example I see is a card like Thassa's Oracle, as it is a very compact and efficient win condition. I do understand and see the impact that Thassa's Oracle has had on Commander, namely on the CEDH side of things. But outright banning a card simply because we don't want to run answers just isn't the way. All the problematic cards that exist in the format right now, there are answers and responses to. We just have to run them. This will wrap up my thoughts on Voja, but I would like to use this video's comment section to discuss how you would suggest handling a Voja being at the table. What cards or strategies would you use to ensure Voja doesn't run away with games? Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, likes and shares are always the best way to help support the channel. If you're new here, remember to subscribe so you never miss a video. And as always, I appreciate you all spending time here with me today, and I'll catch you all next time.